All right, what's going on, everybody? In today's video, what are we doing and what are we talking about? So today, man, what a week. I've been going insane trying to get stuff done, and let me tell you, it's been pretty crazy, but good in a way. You know, it's always good to keep busy. But how are you guys? How is everybody? My people, my fellow techs, my fellow game dev lovers, my fellow fans of electronics, robotics, game dev, all the above. How are you guys doing? I hope everyone's doing well. Never really actually sat down and asked you guys that, so I figured I would just check in, say hi, and I really hope you guys are doing well. Again, it's been a pretty crazy time trying to get everything sorted, and I do apologize for the chaos of the lab here. It's pretty nuts trying to make things work, but you know, it's coming along. But it is definitely crammed and a little messy, but bear with me. So today, it's not necessarily a game dev item that we're going to be looking at today, but it is game related. And this is a piece of equipment made by the company Bung Enterprises. So now this was I'd covered the Doctor V64 about 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago. And so this is kind of similar to that. It's the same company. And so this came out in the, I think, early 90s. And it's for the Super Nintendo or the SNES or the SNES, however you guys want to pronounce it. And the unit that we're looking at today, that is the Game Doctor SF7. All right, so this is the unit here, as you can see. It's a pretty small little unit adapter that fits on the top of the Super Nintendo console, and it inserts into the cartridge slot there. So I'll take this out just to show you briefly. So as you can see, it's got the adapter there that just mates into the cartridge socket. And you just press that down. It's a little finicky here. There we go. You fit it into place. And then you have this cartridge socket here on the top, and that's for when you want to back up an existing game cartridge that you own. The cool thing about this unit is that it has a parallel port interface connector on the back. So now this unit has just been covered to death online already. There's so many channels that have shown this thing up and running. And you know, they go in and they show the software, they show you how to back up game cartridges that you own, as well as, you know, loading those games off of the floppy disks and just making backups of game cartridges that you already own. And you know, there's been so many channels that have shown this, but what I've noticed is not many have actually shown how to load games from a Windows PC using the parallel port interface connector on the back. Now, this unit has its own little power supply that you have to connect to the back. As well, there's the parallel port connection, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So I've got that hooked up on the back of the unit there, as you can see. And I've connected that over to my Windows 7 dev PC that I use for all sorts of game stuff. The next thing you'll want to do is to confirm the BIOS settings for your parallel port. For the parallel port number, select 378 hex. For the mode, you'll want to select PS/2 and not the AT mode. Depending on your motherboard, you may also have options for EPP and ECP modes. So the software that we're going to be looking at today to load ROMs onto this unit via the parallel port from a Windows PC, the software is called Yukon64, and this is a well-known command line tool that has been used for years. It's an older program. Now, someone has actually made a front-end GUI interface wrapper program essentially for this command line tool. And it just gives you that nice graphical user interface to use with the software, and it's quite handy. But when you need to, configure things specifically, and you prefer to use the command line version of the unit, you can easily do that. So we're going to be using the front-end graphical user interface with this unit today, and I'm going to load that up now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually try and load a Homebrew ROM file over onto the unit, and then we'll display it on our little monitor here. And we're going to check that out. So I'll boot up the software now. So this is Yukon64. So I've got a couple of different versions here. Okay. So when you first come up with this software, it's configurable, but you can have multiple tabs here at the top for all the different systems that you want to have it support. But I'm using it specifically for the Super Nintendo. So I've got that set up here. So now what we have to do under the device, we select that drop-down menu and we select Game Doctor SF7, and that's the protocol that we're going to be using to talk to our SF7 unit. So now what we can do is actually go into the Browse tab here, and we're going to go into our ROMs, and we're going to pick a ROM here that I have selected. Now these are some ROMs that I've made backups of from cartridges that I own, but you can also, we're going to select and run and load this. It's a Homebrew demo that was released years ago. I can't even remember, I think it was like 93 or 94, but it's an older Homebrew file that we're going to take a look at here. So now if I go back to you just select the ROM that you want to load, and then once you have it highlighted like that, you go to the SNES tab, and you make sure you have Game Doctor SF7 selected, data type is ROM. And then over here, we can select under miscellaneous, we can say show info. And then that will jump over to our output tab and then show us some header information as well as some details about the ROM file that we're loading. And so then we'll go back to our SNES tab. Over here under the override auto detection, we're going to activate that, and we're going to say file is an SNES file. File header is a size 512, which is the standard. And then down here, we're going to say file is low ROM because we're not selecting anything that's too large, over 1 megabyte. So now, once we have all these options selected, we're then ready to send the ROM file over to our Doctor SF7 unit. So now, before we hit send, we have to actually boot the unit up. So now, in order to get this to communicate properly with your development PC, as soon as you have the parallel port connection interface to your computer that's up and running, the SF7 unit will then detect it right away. As soon as it's connected, it knows that it has a parallel port connection hooked up to your development PC, and it's going to be awaiting some files and ROMs to be sent over to the unit. So then what we do is we press and hold the right trigger at the top of our controller, and we hold that before we power on the unit. So as long as we maintain that, and then we power on the unit, once the unit boots up, we should see that it will be awaiting a linking mode. And as you can see here, you can see on the screen it says linking. And so that's because we have the parallel port connection made and it's connected to our dev PC. If we had that disconnected, that linking mode would not be shown. Okay, so it's just sort of an FYI for you guys to be aware. So as soon as you have it connected, it's going to be ready to go. And when you boot it up with the trigger held, it will come up and show linking shown on the screen there. So now the unit should be ready to receive our ROM files, so we can go ahead and click send. And there we go. You can see the file is uploading and the screen shows here loading, and it shows the percentage of the file being sent. And there we go. And now our little graphical user interface file loader that was shown here has disappeared. And so that should indicate that the file was sent successfully. 100% of that file was sent over to the game Doctor SF7. So now we just press A to select the normal mode. And there we go. As you can see, we have Homebrew demo that was made back in 93 or 94, I believe. And these are online. There's different Homebrew ROMs that you can download just for testing, and it's pretty cool. So this is one that I found online, and so it's just a proof of concept of how it works. So now let's load up another one. I've got a backup of the F-Zero game that I have here that I've made. So we're gonna boot that up, and we'll load that back up, and it's just to show you how it works here. So now if I shut this off, okay, and now we'll go back to the software. Okay, now under Browse, we're going to go to F-Zero, and here's a couple of ROMs that I've backed up, and we're going to load the F-Zero 1. That's the first F-Zero game. Now, one thing I'll take a minute here just to talk about the naming conventions for these files. Now this mainly applies to the floppy disks, but I have implemented this as well for the files that I'm loading over the parallel port. I'm not 100% sure if it's as critical when you're using the parallel port, but I've just chosen to go along with it in case I do load them onto a floppy disk. It's recommended that you always have SF as a prefix with the file name that you're assigning to the ROM file, as well as 04. That right here is the megabit rating size of the ROM that you're loading. So this is a 4 megabit ROM file for F-Zero 1. And then here, this is F-Zero 2, right? This is version 2 of F-Zero, and this is an 8 megabit ROM file. So that's a 1 megabyte file. This one is a 512 kilobyte file. And so you essentially indicate the megabit rating for those files just as a prefix here. So always SF04 for a 512 kilobyte file, and then SF08 for a 1 megabyte file, and so on. It's just the megabit rating that you put in there. So now we're gonna load F-Zero, the first F-Zero. So we have that selected there now, and we go to back to our SNES tab, and we have all these settings still selected, which is perfect. And so then we just have to, again, all we do is press and hold the right trigger on our controller, and then we can power up the Super Nintendo, and then we wait for the linking message on the screen. And there it is. Okay, so we're good there. Now we'll go back to the software here, and I'll hit send. And there it goes. And you can see here, this is the percentage amount there of the file, and there it's disappeared. So we know that 100% of that file was actually uploaded to the memory of the Game Doctor SF7, and that's what you want. If it freezes or it only goes halfway, then the file has not been sent fully, and you might have to restart that process and you know, shut down the console and then boot up again holding the right trigger. So we'll go ahead now, and with our joystick we're on normal mode, so we go ahead and press A, and that should load the game. And there it is. Yep. And that's right here is the original there that we've backed up from that. And I do not condone any piracy, which I know this unit has been known for. It was sort of a touchy subject, so do not support that whatsoever. All right. Yep, so there you go. As you can see, we've got the game running there, and it works just fine. Anyhow, you get the point. So it's pretty cool, and apparently this unit had a CD-ROM adapter that you could hook up, a standalone CD-ROM unit that would plug into the back and attach via the parallel port connection. So thinking about it, it would be a very unique CD-ROM unit, because I'm thinking it would most likely have to have some kind of an interface there to handle that parallel port interface connection and sending the files back and forth. So it wouldn't be just like any standard CD-ROM drive by any means. It would be something custom. But it's pretty cool. So that would be something cool to get a hold of and be able to do some testing with that. Be a pretty neat little unit. Anyway, this is just something that I wanted to show you guys. So, you know, it's something cool that you can use to load Homebrew that you're writing yourself, and when you're generating your own Super Nintendo ROMs, you can then use this with the Yukon 64 software and the Bung Enterprises Game Doctor SF7 unit, and then you can load that directly onto real hardware, which is pretty awesome. If any of you are interested, I covered a similar unit that was made by Bung Enterprises about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. And that was the Doctor V64 that was used with the Nintendo 64 game console. It had been used in the past by a couple of different game development companies. I did a real deep dive on that unit. So if any of you are interested in checking that out, link is above. It's also in the description. So that concludes the video today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun getting this unit up and running and figuring it all out, getting the software to work, you know, figuring out the interface properly. However, I did not get it to work with the original software for this unit. And that's the software that I have here, TSF3, a little command line tool. And there was some issues there getting that to communicate properly. However, when I did use Yukon 64 on the same system, it worked flawlessly. So that's some debugging. I think it might actually be like a firmware issue. If it's a really old piece of software, it might have been designed to be used with an older firmware version. So might be something to just play around with and see if I can get it working in the future. That'd be fun. So that's a wrap, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like and subscribe if you can. It's always appreciated. And we will see you guys in the next video. Take it easy, and bye for now. Ciao.